All right, and welcome back to Bayou Time. And as you know, over the years, we love to bring on new people here in the area. And at CIS, once again, we've interviewed so many doctors coming in from CIS over the years. And Dr. Ayush Arora is with us today, and he comes with a pretty good resume. But first of all, let me welcome you to the program. How are you, Doc?
Very good. Thank you for having me.
Oh, anytime. And you're an interventional cardiologist at Cardiovascular Institute of the South in Thibodaux. If you could, give me a little bit of background on yourself. How did you get to this area?
Absolutely. I was born and brought up in North India, and I did my med school in New Delhi. And then I wanted to come to the United States for further training. So I did my internal medicine residency at Rutgers, New Jersey Medical School. And then to Houston at University of Texas, I did cardiology and interventional at Mount Sinai in New York. Now, I met my wife around 6 years ago, and she found a job in New Orleans. She's a pediatric ICU doctor. And then I started interviewing in this area. And when I interviewed with Dr. Walker, his long-term vision about providing the best cardiology care to the community coincided with my training principles, and that led me to join his practice here in CIS Thibodaux.
You know, you make a good point because a lot of people go to job interviews, and if you don't sense that the person that's interviewing you has passion for what they do, sometimes you go, well, that was a nice guy, nice gal, but I think I'm going to go somewhere else. But when you talk to Dr. Walker about intervention, if you don't believe it, something's wrong, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I distinctly remember it was around 2 years ago when I first visited the Gray facility and also Houma. Dr. Walker, he walked me through how he started 40 years ago, how he trained at Harvard in Boston and wanted to serve his community here in Houma. He showed me the original mission statement that he requested to provide the cath lab and CCU services in the community. And his mission statement, we went over it point by point, and I was so impressed. And then I noted for the size of community that we are in and the technological superiority and the overall care that Dr. Walker and his team are providing in this area is phenomenal.
And not to mention the amount, because of our lifestyle here in the area, we all like to ball seafood and throw that extra seasoning in, and we probably eat a lot of fried foods. It's
Absolutely.
a haven for, we've had some bad, I guess, culture growing up the way we eat, so it was just a melting pot for people who need care.
Absolutely. I think not just in this community, but overall obesity and metabolic syndrome are pandemics, and especially in cultures where the food is rich, including our local community, we obviously have seen higher rates of heart disease and peripheral arterial disease and also venous disease.
I'm going to chuckle a little bit because I see you have jet black hair. And I remember interviewing Dr. Walker years ago, Dr. Jody Stagg. I mean, I could go, Dr. Ladd. We could go down the line of just all the doctors at one point have been either on this news desk, the old news desk, or I've gone on location to interview them. They were always young and aspiring, and a lot of them are still at it after all these years. So you're getting to work with a lot of team members, and looking at your resume, you've been to some pretty impressive places. So how has that worked out for you? What have you learned along the way? They got some pretty good people in the medical field, don't they?
Absolutely. I think there are several legends in the field who are working in this community. Of course, we spoke about Dr. Walker and Dr. Fail, and several other cardiologists in the area who have been pioneers in bringing some of the cutting-edge technology and enrolled a lot of patients and helped a lot of patients with the new devices and research trials and so on and so forth. When I was interviewing in this area, as I said, New Orleans and around, I was, to be very honest, surprised how in so many different areas of cardiovascular care, the care provided in this community was superior or equal to the care provided in major cities like New Orleans and Baton Rouge. So coming from big places like University of Texas or Mount Sinai Hospital, I find that care in interventional cardiology is at par, if not superior, in terms of providing care in this area.
I remember when they first started at Terrebonne General years ago with a cath lab. And people in the community were going, what's a cath lab? And we soon found out, and Dr. Walker could have gone anywhere. But he wanted to come back to his hometown. And now I think he's, not only is he practicing, but he's mentoring, he's training, he's doing a lot of different things. So we've all seen the doctors come in and they all specialize in different areas. And we were sort of talking during the break. I go by, okay, are you going to do the same things Dr. Walker does? Or are you going to do, we can name different doctors, they specialize in different things. You told me it was more like what Dr. Walker does.
Absolutely. So I specialize in interventional cardiology and general cardiology. That means I take care of patients with bread and butter cardiovascular issues and also specialize in doing procedures on their heart arteries for heart artery blockages in their leg arteries, and also their venous problems. I am passionate about two particular things the way I've been trained. I'll first talk about cardiovascular prevention. Although as an interventionalist, I enjoy doing procedures and helping people, but cardiovascular prevention is one of my passions. I spend a lot of time with my patients in the clinic discussing their risk factors for developing heart disease or progression of heart disease, and how we can change things in their lifestyle, in their diet, exercise, and control risk factor with medication adjustment in order to prevent, negate, or postpone their requirement of cardiovascular interventions. Number two is something called complex high-risk interventions, complex high-risk indicated interventions. So for people who have complex blockages in their heart or in their legs, and that can include calcified arteries or anatomy making the interventions complex, or actually requiring bypass surgery but inability to get them because of being high risk because of their medical conditions. Those are the patients that I spent a lot of time taking care of them during my interventional training at Mount Sinai. And that is truly one of my passions. So that is something I specialize in, and I look forward to helping people in the community.
Now, you've had, I'm going to say luxury, because 40 years ago when Dr. Walker was coming on the scene, they were pioneering all kinds of things. They were doing stents, they were doing laser, they were doing a little bit of everything that's never been heard of before. We were filming some of these procedures, and I was like in awe.
Absolutely.
And I was sitting there going, wow, I mean, this is unbelievable. You're coming 40 years later with all this out already. Do you see yourself as someone who could pioneer the next 40 years?
That's a great question. First of all, I do feel very lucky that a lot of technological advancement is already made in our field, and the results are outstanding. And as more research is being done, the new devices are safer and more efficacious. Having said that, there's always scope for growth. So there are new technologies coming that are either are tested or are being tested to make the procedures less risky and more efficacious. And I don't know if I can ride the next 40 years, probably not, but I'm going to do my best to contribute to the field and to the community.
You've sort of done so much in 40 years, they didn't leave y'all much of a margin to
That's
do
correct.
things. But we see technology. Who would have thought every 10 years we just see a shift?
Absolutely.
So I'm sure there's going to be something coming out
Yeah.
where you're going to go to a seminar one day and somebody's going to have invented something, and you're going to go,
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah. I know a couple of things in the field is now we have drug-coated balloons coming up for the coronary artery disease, which are not yet approved in America, but there are trials going on. They have been in use in Europe and Asia and other parts of the world, but I have been trained using those balloons. In addition, there are more equipment which can screen people for microvascular disease, not just the major arteries, and vasospastic, meaning the vessels contracting in response to certain situations. And those are the things that I look forward to bringing to our community, which are not there right now.
What made you decide one day? I guess at one point you had to decide if you wanted to be a doctor, but then you had to decide you were going into cardiology.
The decision to become a doctor stemmed during my childhood because I saw my father serve a similar community actually in North India, small, tight, very nice people. So he's a surgeon there and still practicing. That's where I got the motivation to become a doctor. And during my medical school, I was drawn towards internal medicine. And during my internal medicine residency, I was drawn towards taking care of patients with complex cardiovascular issues, especially in CCU or the cardiac ICU. And from there, I got exposure into cath lab to doing procedures and helping people, especially during times of heart attack. The kind of impact you can have on a person who's having a heart attack and saving their life is truly tremendous, and that's what drove me towards the field.
And just in closing, you know what's impressive about talking to you, and I've seen it before at CIS, is when you have a resume like you have, we expect that doctors would go to big cities, big institutions. But this institution in this area is so world-renowned, it attracts a lot of very, very good people like yourself.
Absolutely. I think Cardiovascular Institute of South is a big institution.
That was 21.
Yeah. And there are more than 20 locations and some 60, 70 cardiologists practicing and ever growing. But most importantly, it's the vision and the goals of the providers to serve the community that draws people to the practice. That's what I feel.
Doc, it was good meeting you, good seeing you. We're glad you chose this area. I look forward to following your career and watching you become a pioneer in the next few years.
Thank you for your kind words, and thank you for having me.
Anytime.
I look forward to serving the community.
All right, Dr. Arora. All right, we'll take a short break. We'll have a lot more here on Bayou Time. Don't go away.